Another day of use with the new Logic Pro for iPad, and another day of things to talk about. So let's do that. Let's jump right in. And if you're watching, make sure you put in the comments some of your thoughts about this and what you think is working and what you think isn't working. I have a lot of opinions brewing with this, but this is the first time today that I've gotten everything kind of at least somewhat hooked up. So on my iPad, I've got a little hub, and it's powered, so it's going to power. And the other one is going to my audio interface, SSL12, and my keyboard. And it was just as difficult to hook up as I was guessing it would be, knowing what I know about the iPad format. And by that I mean anytime you have a device with one port, how difficult sometimes that can be. And then, Q Coletti says, I just can't wait to get this stuff on Mac OS. I think Logic 11 for sure is coming this fall with subscription. They will do it before Final Cut. Maybe. It could be. And we'll see. I don't know how I'm going to feel about any of that. I know that right this moment, I have a feeling that I'm going to be using Logic Pro on my Mac Studio Ultra consistently far more than I'm going to be using it on my iPad. I'm going to probably still be using my iPad mostly for, just surfing the interwebs before bed, playing some games, sometimes watching Netflix. And I don't know if I'm going to be using it that much for this. So we're going to see. I wish I could come through and even with this app, I wish I could make the color scheme different. We went from like a gray version of Logic to like a dark gray black version of Logic Pro on iOS. So, this is those interface choices that are continuously baffling. It looks cool until you're like having to sort around for the exact place you need something, right? And so there's that. Okay, let's talk about some of the stuff though, because I did go through and finally get, like I said, my keyboard. It's an 88 key weighted keyboard, and it's actually a miracle that what you're hearing is what I'm playing because of latency. This isn't your normal system. Perhaps if I was just on the iPad, it would be one thing, but I'm doing iPad to another streaming setup, and then that's what you're hearing is through, it's like two different systems. And so I think there's some issues. I'm going to be continuously improving this setup. I know that the microphone I'm using right now to talk to you is not ideal, but we're going to make it work. So let's talk about the professionalism of what I need from a setup like this, because it isn't 100% clear if you can do the things you want to do with more equipment. One of the things I was most interested in was how well the MIDI in stuff is going to work, and right now it works well. Plus, I think we're going to be emphasizing Bluetooth MIDI devices. That is a thing on the market. You can get them, but that doesn't mean everybody has a Bluetooth MIDI device ready to go. Excuse me, and I certainly don't right this moment. Why would I when I have a bunch of non-Bluetooth devices that work well and have fairly low latency? Anytime you add Bluetooth into the mix, you're going to be adding some latency. But and also power. it feels like the idea from this is that you want to take a little Bluetooth keyboard with you and have your iPad and a pair of Bluetooth headphones, right? I mean, at that point, we're not talking, it's like a new paradigm, and maybe that's the way of the future. It certainly could be. I don't want to necessarily poo-poo that idea, but certainly we're not quite there for the professional part of it. Maybe we should talk about the portable version of the iPad with Logic Pro, and that could be one of our next videos. But today, no. Today we're looking at, connecting all these various things. I'm already having some issues with my interface. It works, the SSL12. When I plug it directly in, I can get 4 channels of phantom power and all the mic gain I want, including some of the optional things. When I plugged it into this little hub, I do not have all of that capability. In fact, putting phantom power in all the channels makes it crash a little bit. So I got to sort that part out. We'll figure it out, but it's it could be that I need to just plug in the SSL12 and use its MIDI that's on board. But all of a sudden we're limited to what we can expand with. And I think that's the issue here. Okay, in terms of sounds and quality, right this moment, of course, if you've watched my channel at all over the years, you know that I do prefer a lot of the stock plugins, mostly for situations like this where I don't have to rely on a lot of other people's things to be updated or to work. And so I'm really comfortable with a lot of the tools. And we'll see just how much we get additional features now that we have this. I'm guessing, if at all, it'll take a while. And so we're not too worried about that. I'm not holding my breath anytime soon for specific instruments. I will say, and this is an interesting point that I was talking about on the stream yesterday, it feels like GarageBand for iPad OS and iOS still has a few features which are better than what we have in Logic Pro. There are a couple in there. And I was surprised to see that. We can actually look at some of those today if you're interested. But there are a few things in there that I felt, wow, why does GarageBand have some of this stuff and we don't have it yet in Logic for iPad? So perhaps it's growing pains. I feel like when the Apple Watch was first released, that there were a lot of features that we don't currently have anymore. And I've seen some people writing about this. It's as if they didn't know which features were going to be the ones that people cared about. And so they released a bunch of them, and then they tracked it very carefully and saw which of the features people wanted most. And once they figured out what people really wanted from the device, they started dropping off the ones that people weren't using and really developing the ones that they were. It's data-based program development. And so we're in the beta phase, essentially, of Logic Pro. They're going to be tracking everything we do. And as they see what works and what doesn't, they're going to be using those features to kind of lead the way a little bit. And it doesn't matter at that point how many people complain, right? It doesn't matter if there are some very loud Logic users online that just complain about certain things. If they look at the data and they see, 95% of the people don't use one of the features, but 5% of the people are very vocal about it, they're going to say, great, I'm sorry that the 5% of you are going to miss this, but 95% of people don't use it. So that's part of it. So we do have, in our little properties area, the ability to choose things like MIDI import, something we just barely got in Logic, right? It's been a long time coming, and right out of the gate, we have it here, which I'm grateful for. So we can choose the MIDI import. We have a lot of our normal stuff in here, which is fine. But I think overall, certainly, the biggest chunk of the things that we need are here. I want to be testing just a little bit today some of the stuff that we have with this. So I've got my mouse connected here. And my mouse is set for universal control, which means when I'm moving it on my iPad, it does that. When I move it to the right of the screen, it goes to my Mac Pro, or my Mac Studio Ultra, I mean. And in there, I've got additional, things that we're going to be going back and forth and testing. Because I want to see exactly a few things with Logic and how those things work. One of the things right off the bat I was curious about as I just started this, and I haven't had a time to test it, so we're going to do that really quickly, is I'm going to go to just like one of my bounces here. I'm going to drag this audio file onto Logic Pro. It looks like it gets lost when I do that. Okay, I was wondering. I was curious if we could drag between the Mac, and it gets lost right when I go in there. Okay, so it can't do that. That would have been cool to be able to pull those over from the computer into the iPad. And maybe that's still coming. It looks like it tries for a second, but not enough to make it work. Okay, the other thing I'm curious about with all of this is which things we can do that I use on a day-to-day basis. So I use, for instance, the Groove track inside Logic on the Mac, and so I'm curious just how many of those things transfer back and forth. You can see when I come over and right-click here, it says rename, duplicate, create summing track, create folder track, show patches, find similar, or save patch. Curious what that looks like. Okay, just save it as a name. So maybe that'll be something that we'll use to organize some of the stuff, but I don't know yet exactly how much that's going to play a role here. Customize track header. So we have the track on and off buttons. We have our freeze functionality. You can actually have things auto freeze. We have our input monitoring, which is useful. Track colors, and then show volume or not. Record, enable, solo, but no groove track. But I don't know exactly how yet that's going to work. Let's create one more track here. So I have two of them. Because when we use groove tracks, it shows up in various different ways. Yeah, so let's record just a quick region. There's just a little bit of latency there, but we'll make that work for now. Okay, so let's go back. And let's choose the other track here. Right, we'll just do something really similar. Okay, I can already feel there's a little bit of latency involved with all of this. Let me change. I think I was on one of my wrong settings. That's better. Okay, let's delete those real quick. In this case, we can just hit undo. Let's try that again with less latency. Right, something super simple. Ooh. Some of the musical choices, not so good. The timing choices, I think, were right on. So we're going to click on this, and we'll see quantize right here, and all of the choices. So this is like going back to logic, old school logic. We have our smart quantize option, which is nice. But I don't see any ability to quantize to other things. Wow, there's a lock time position right there, which is kind of nice. So we'll do smart quantize. Eighth notes. And this one will be a smart quantize as well, but no ability to go between the tracks. Let me catch up on the contents for a second. No Destination really says, I will never complain about technology of this era when compared to 50 years ago. Good point. Q says there's a lot of learning curve. It's easy to get frustrated with the iPad app when you've been working on a laptop. I'm not frustrated with the learning curve. I welcome a challenge. I'm frustrated with some of the choices they made, though. And then Totigress says, how do beat breakers show up in the Logic 10.7.8? So it shows up as a little box that says this plugin doesn't work on Logic. It's just here for compatibility's sake, and you can hear what it does. The effects are there. This was how, when you used to use the remix effect in GarageBand and then bring that GarageBand session into Logic, it would actually have the effects, and the plugin was there. They just weren't unlocking it for that platform. So that means that they're either not ready for a release in the full version of Logic, or they're holding things back in order to make it so people want to use it. Not like Apple's ever done that. Hold back features on one platform so you use a different one. And then Jay Bognap says MIDI export would be great for people using DAWs other than Logic Mac. True. I didn't think about that. And when we do export, there's no choice. So yeah. Yeah, they want you to have Logic for the Mac, for sure. So that is a professional weakness. Meaning, if you can't even export MIDI, something that every major professional digital audio workstation can do, and this one just can't, that puts it in a separate class. There are features that I would consider something that every program could do. Export MIDI would be one of them. I think it's important. Okay, so we'll see about that if that comes. I hate thinking, okay, well maybe things are going to come down in the future, but I don't see. I'm looking down here just to make sure I haven't missed it someplace else. I'll have to look, but I don't think so. Let's see. Show an editor. Click here. Catch playhead. Note labels. Select all. Yeah, there's nothing. But the majority of the features we really do use are here, I think. Enough for me to edit MIDI. I think there's nobody who uses Reason get angry, but I think this still has better MIDI editing capabilities than Pro Tools and Reason. Maybe not Cubase, maybe not Studio One, definitely not better than Ableton or FL Studio, but we're ahead of the curve on many of the workstations. I don't think so, Totigrus, about going to a different app. But let me... I don't think I can get it out of here. Oof, I can go to an audio file right there. Thank you. Let's see. Copy. And I wonder if I can, you can't see my screen right now, but I'm going to try to do a cross-platform paste. Because sometimes with iCloud you can copy and paste between platforms, but that is not the case right now. I just tried. And that's weird. When I try to paste it, it brings my mouse back off the other screen. Anyway, interesting. Okay, so no luck with that. We're trying stuff. Totigra says, are you using a pencil and or Magic Keyboard? I love using the pencil, but I'm waiting on investing on the Magic Keyboard. I've got like an off-brand Apple Pencil, which works essentially like the Apple Pencil. It works great, but I haven't been using it that much. Today I'm using this wireless mouse, which works really well. I'm used to it. It's in a form factor I like. It sucks batteries, but you know, that's okay. And so I'm using that, but I have the pencil I use works really well too. I think it's upstairs right now, not down here. Cool. But I will be testing that out with automation and things. But the automation does work with your finger. You don't need the pencil for anything, but certainly it is kind of nice to have. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the features that we have here that we don't have anywhere else. And Beelzebub, I'd have to look. I wonder if I bought it on Amazon. I could probably search it up by... Nope, I'm not signed in, and I don't want to sign in right now. I just bought it off Amazon for like $50 or something. It was, it's been really nice. It has most of the features, and I like it. I got one of the original Apple Pencils for my old iPad, and when they switched to the new Apple Pencil format, I was like, I don't ever want to buy another one of those again. That's like over $100 for something that should have just worked from version 1 to version 2. But they're like, no, it can't possibly work. We couldn't have designed it to work. You have to buy a new one in the new format. And that's such a pain in the butt. Let me see if I can just write. That was delete. Okay, cool. I am having a hard time swiping. Maybe that's a setting I need to set up in the iPad. Like scrolling with the mouse. It seems to have a hard time sometimes. Okay, and so what I'm curious about, let's leave this project. Project number 3. In there. It's going to upload it into iCloud. And of course, I'm going to come over here to iCloud on my Mac. You can't see this right now. I know that. And that's okay for the moment. So it's the scroll of the mouse that's having a problem because it's not working there either. Okay, so I'm going to Logic Pro for iPad, Project 3. And I'm just going to let it, today 4/11. Okay, so that's updated. So everybody hang tight for a second while I load Logic in the background. And I'm just going to turn on the groove track. That's one of the features, for instance, I'm curious about for a minute. So I want to see how that works. I want to see if I come over here and say, turn on groove track. I'm going to start one, have the other one chase. I'm going to save and quit, right? I'm going to let it upload to the cloud. You can see on my screen how it just updated that. That's cool. And then we're going to open that up. That's the smoothest it's been since I started this. And there's like no evidence that that's done anything. Yeah, so I don't know how to reconcile those kind of differences. It let me go between the projects. Does that mean they're differently quantized on one platform than they are on another? Yes, maybe. Oh my gosh, that's the kind of stuff. If your projects don't sound the same on one platform as they do on another platform, this becomes a completely hypothetical experience, right? It's not real at that point. It's just two different applications, and we have to do all of the stuff we used to have to do when going between platforms. So we have to always make sure we turn off Groove Track, and we have to make sure we don't use Flex Pitch, and we have to make sure that we don't use external MIDI tracks and all this other stuff. It's like a nightmare in some ways. Dr. Voodoo says, not being able to use my custom key commands would severely slow me down. I can see myself getting real frustrated very quickly. Well, be prepared if you do use it. Yeah, but who is that, Dr. Voodoo? Who in the world is that audience you're talking about? Because someone who's never used Logic, so it's maybe a graduation from GarageBand then. That's all I can think about, because everybody else, I mean, it's going to be GarageBand users. We're not going to take Cubasis users usually. It doesn't do enough to warrant that move. Has all the same limitations. Cubasis has more third-party plugins already available for it. They made deals with Waves, and so Cubasis has Waves plugins that work in both places. But bedroom producers, are they going to really be the ones buying an iPad for this and then deciding they need this? Or are they going to be, using some other laptop computer that can do more? I don't know. It's a question. It's not an answer. I don't know the answer specifically. I'm excited to see if this draws people into using it. But boy, there's some limitations with it. Does Bounce in Place exist? Yes, there is a version of it. Let me show you, I believe. So right click, Bounce and Join, Bounce in Place. So you can change the name, destination, the source, included effects plugins, include audio tail and file, include pan automation, normalize it if you want. Those are the options. So Bounce in Place does exist. and freeze works as well. And actually, something that I feel like we should have in every program really would be the ability to freeze automatically. And I say that sincerely because anytime we're just working with stuff, it would be nice just to have it just be like, okay, let's freeze that for any time as we're going. I'm curious if I double click on the... No, you can't see it any bigger in terms of the CPU meter. Cool. And Dr. Voodoo is talking about the new browser and the tile plugins. I don't know yet about the new browser personally, because I still feel like it's a little bit limiting in some ways. But it's really promising. I do think it's promising. The thing that I wish... is that we could say, I want to pull in here like one of my equalizers, right? I want to just equalize that. So it's like, ooh, let's do a little quick search for the equalizer we want. And then pull it out there. But this one, so we have the plugin presets, right? I have to select one of the things that I want to pull out there. And I can't just like pull out an EQ to any place on there. It's okay, cool. If we click on this, we do have plugin search. The ironic thing about the plugin search on Logic Pro for iPad is that you only have, the 30 plugins. You don't need plugin search yet. But it is nice that we now have this as a choice. And so I think it's kind of nice. Let's pull a graphic equalizer to put it in there. Here's our there's all the bands. That's the audio. Okay, cool. I understand they're putting space in between the little things to make it so that it's accessible by touch, but it's a little bit problematic in many ways. It's like they're experimenting with this whole workflow of all of these buttons. That being said, look at the little tile for the graphic EQ, a level up and down. Look at the E-piano version of that. It's not a lot. And so, cool. It is, once I get used to it, it's going to be one of the better parts of this, I think, with the tiles. Let's see. Any DSP options? I see normalize only during bounds in place. I see what you're saying. Are you talking about offline processing? So, for instance... let me come over here and just pull an Apple loop of some sort. Right, so let's pull this drum. And then let's cycle it. Oh, whoops. I guess I could have done that two different ways. Oh, let's just do it up there. Loop, like that. So let me push play, see if it even... Okay, needs some work. But if we're on this, we can do some basic things, but not a ton. Let's show in the editor. We don't have like the file editor in the main version of Logic where you could like do normalize and other things. Let's see, tempo, convert. Edit. Repeat region, toggle mute, quantize, convert regions to live loops. I mean, we're so limited with what we can do right here. It's like, why even have an editor for that then? If you ask me, I don't. And this is like the hokiest little GarageBand scissor tool that I've ever seen. I don't think. It's like we have to drag that. And it goes by transient, which is nice. So it's trying to guess. Well, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just going by snap function. So let's do snap to grid. And now we can do it anywhere we want. Boom. But it's that's tricky stuff. It's not my favorite. And inside the editor, I mean, it's the same thing. You still have that hokey scissor tool thing. With a snap function, you have to turn on or off. So, I mean, that's not... I'm not going to be editing anything of major status inside this version of Logic, that's for sure. I'll still go to Logic Pro on the Mac for most editing things of any detail. I mean, you can definitely, so this is LA Winter, you can definitely load iOS AU plugins. So for instance, if I'm in the mixer, let's get rid of all these other window tabs. At the top where it has the little plus sign, that's the edit or the setup. So we can come through here and say on my audio track, here's recent, here's Logic Pro. By the way, all searchable again, which we've been asking for. We have plugin search in this version, but not Mac OS. And then here are my audio unit plugins that I have installed right this moment. I've got a few more that I don't have installed, but these are the main ones I've got installed. I don't even know what the Amazing Noises one is. Oh, Dub Filter. Okay, I do. That's just the brand. Oof, these ones are cool. Sparkle effects. And then we load that up. That's a really great plugin, by the way. Oof, so good. And so now with this, we can come through and run things how we want to. It's really powerful plugin and it works. I don't have this plugin on my Mac, so if I open this up in Logic on the Mac, it would just be an empty. It would be one of those ones with a little orange exclamation point, you know. Let's see. Dr. Voodoo says, can you access your own channel strip presets? I mean, not ones you've created other places, like in Logic. So no to that. Let me check. I'm curious about this as well. You can copy channel strip settings. You can switch off all effect plugins, actually a useful tool. And then you can remove inactive plugins, remove all effects, remove all sends, and reset it. That seems... There's more to this. There's got to be. Where is it? General, icon, freeze mode, flex. What is... Whoa, okay, I hadn't seen this yet. I haven't seen the flex option or found it in the manual. I looked in the manual, but maybe it was just there someplace else. Here's all the flex time options. Slicing, polyrhythmic, all of these. So let's just do Slicing mode. Okay, close that down for a second. But I don't think we can actually... we can't actually see it anywhere. That's just going to be if you do time change type things. But we do have like fine tuning and transposing and speed and flex and follow. Oof, all of that stuff. Quantization still has nothing with other tracks. Okay. So the flex thing is the first time you'll see it doesn't have flex pitch, nor do I know how that works when you go between the two versions of Logic, but interesting. There is a little bit of flex in here. That's more promising than I realized. I'm guessing that it's going to improve a lot over time. I think they have the pieces in here, but they really are going to be testing to see what people use. The problem is, if they designed it poorly in the first place, and no one knows how to use it very well, then people aren't going to use it. I mean, that's just like, if they made it great from the beginning, then that would be a different thing. Let's do sparkle effects, replace. So I really, let's see, I really like where the heck is it? It's like totally left my brain. Okay, make me look at them all. Amps and pedals, no. Delay, no. Distortion, no. Pitch, no. Modulation. All of them are here. Oof. We're going to get there in a second. I'm curious. I don't even know where it was. I'm going to have to look. I probably just saw it. The Beat Breaker, of course, and the Alchemy sample, or sample Alchemy. Those two are like the two main things that are new. Oh my gosh. You'll see one thing that I just did there with the plugin search. Thank goodness. I'm not going to stop looking for everything and just remember what the names are of things. That's really the key with all of this. Plugin search. No one can complain about plugin search if they have this version of Logic. Hakeem says, guess I better RTFM. And that's true for all of us if we want to actually use this. I feel like I'm getting it down just by using it for a little bit. I'm going to read it about this. I'm going to read it about the sample Alchemy, which we'll talk about in a second because it's pretty cool. But this tool is so cool. This like blows everything else away, in my opinion. Something that I've loved in other programs. Let's turn off those things and just do the drums. I mean, the way that the browser with presets work with the instruments and the effects, that's really cool. And it's not like a mouse move. I mean, literally, if I'm working with the mouse, I can just set it down and go to town with this. That, to me, I think is one of my favorite parts of this. And it's intelligent. It knows like what we're doing here and what we're working on. So it's like if I've got, something else happening here. Say we just have like the tube EQ, right? It's like over on the left side right now, this is an EQ thing, so punchy snare. Click on this and all of a sudden I can be like, you know what, I want something else warped. That's cool. So the presets mixed with the tiles is probably my favorite part of the whole thing. Is that just ability to do this. And you can see on the screen, it's not taking up a ton of real estate right now. And then I can go more in depth with the mixer, right? Let's just close. Ooh, I just took a picture. That was the only problem I have with all of this stuff is every once in a while I hit the wrong thing on the screen. But now I'm at the mixer. We're going to get used to this. We're going to get used to moving things around. I don't think that that's the issue. Certainly, it's going to take a few minutes. But those parts, I think, are going to like blow everybody away once you get used to them. Aaron A. Everyone's going to, there's a lot of people who are going to subscribe to it. I think that's the whole thing, is that they're going to get excited. And if they don't get excited now, when the next version comes out and some other cool tool is in there, then they'll get excited. I don't know about a randomized button yet. If you're talking about the beat breaker. You see we have some basic settings. Just easy to click. So we have time, repeat, volume. But I do not see a randomization. That would be cool. Maybe there is one that I need to figure out, but as of this moment, just with a quick look, I don't see one. Then Bozen says, the weird thing about beat breaker is that it would be quite easy to just convert for mouse. That's not the point. Yes, it would be easy. I think that they're trying to show people the benefit of what's on the iPad. They're allowed to do that. For sure. Every company's allowed to do things that draw people to one product when they're releasing it. Let's see. Do I want tiles to come to macOS Logic? We had smart tools there. And I haven't really used those all that much, except for some of the under the hood features of MIDI, like controller configuration. But I don't really use those knobs on there. So I doubt I'm going to use the tiles all that much, except for organization. And by organization, I mean this view right here. It's like awesome. I get to say like, let's add another plugin without having to go to the browser or anything. I can just pull it right there. That's great for me. One thing we're missing right this moment, say I add, I can't click on this and move it around. So, we can't reorder them. That would have been what I would have focused on. Okay, let's add tiles. We can change the order of plugins. And that would have been genius. But now we can do plugin, add plugin before. We can't even do one after. We always have to go to the next one and do an add plugin before. And so, wow, that's a missed opportunity that I hope they fix, is reordering plugins in the tile window by moving with your finger, right? Why wouldn't that be an option from day one? I don't know. But I'm picky. So I'm sure that part of me is just being unrealistic in my expectations. Okay, cool. Any other questions or anything you'd like to see before we wrap up? We're going to be doing a stream like this probably every day for a little bit as we discover new things and really get under the hood. In the evening, I'm going to be doing streams where I just create music using this. I've been doing those streams already in other versions, and I'm just going to be doing the streams now here using this. And so I think it'll be a fun experiment to see how good we can do stuff without having to jump on the Mac version. So the last thing from Q there is interesting comment. I think most of the stuff is there. But of the stuff I use on a day-to-day basis, there's like 10 things that it's missing that I wish I could do. Those 10 things, I don't know if they're all 10. Here's a few of them. The notation editor, I like to be able to read music when I'm writing it. No notation. I do a lot with flex pitch. No flex pitch. I use an enormous amount of oh geez, I just lost it. Enormous amount of things, right? Sample libraries that I can't bring out here, like orchestral things. I do a lot with the groove track. That's what I was thinking of a second ago. I do a lot with a groove track. I do a lot with, I don't know if we have, let's see what global tracks we have. Markers, okay, and tempo. Are those really the only ones we have? So I do a lot with the songwriting markers. Oh, I do a lot with the producer tracks of the drums, the producer kits. We can't use producer kits on here. I mean, there's stuff that we can't use. And so until then, I'll be doing most of my work on Logic Pro for Mac, and I'll be experimenting on here as we get more and more features. At some point, because we have the two paths, at some point they're going to cross, and then I'll switch over and use the other one. There's no question in my mind that at some point a tablet will be my main production device. This is the closest it's ever been. It's just not quite there yet. Gigadeath, you're amazing. Oof. Yeah, you jump on and I'm like, ooh, it's time to end. I'm just kidding. That's never the case. But thanks for watching, everybody. And I'm going to go. We had a big rainstorm come through. I got to run to the store and do some errands and things like a grown-up. Not my favorite activities. I'd rather be here talking to all of you. But I really appreciate you all being here. And like I said, we're going to be doing some evening streams where it's just creative time, where I don't even talk much. I just make music and I try to figure stuff out. And then we'll do some afternoon streams for the next week or so where we're figuring things out. I'm going to start reading the manual. I do read the entire manual of Logic when I use it. I've read the previous manuals all the time. And so this is one that I need to read a little closer because it's new and we need to see what it is that may be hidden under places. I don't think there's a lot hidden. There's not a lot of room to hide things right now, but no matter what, it's a cool piece of software. It may not be exactly what we're thinking in terms of what Logic is, but it's still a cool piece of software, and it's only going to get better. There's no way around that. They're going to make it better as they see what people use. Hakeem, thank you for that super chat. Woo! By Microtune, what do you mean? Oh. Let me check that out, because you're talking about it being in Logic. Maybe it was there all along, and I just hadn't seen it. I'm going to load up my full version of Logic real quick. Was it there before? Can anybody who does not have 10.7.8 installed open up and see if the pitch plugin has the neural mode on it? Okay, let me see if I can't get this loaded. It's still loading slowly. It might have been there before and I just never noticed it. I'm never surprised when I miss something small that I don't use. Still looks horrible. Neural pitch detection. Well, yeah, can anyone look and see? This plugin looks just as crappy as it always has. Neural pitch detection. Okay, as soon as we find this out, we're going to pull the plug on the stream. Logic 10.7.7 on the Mac. If you open up the pitch correction plugin, at the very bottom, when you hit that little arrow to expand the bottom part of the plugin, can you look and see if it says neural pitch detection there? And like I said, once we figure this out, if someone can look. Yeah, it would be the same for Ty. Can you look? Do you have it open in front of you by any chance? So you don't see anything with neural detection there, Gigadeath, Timo? Okay. Well, I guess I need to look through the official release notes of 10.7.8 and see what else they added. I haven't done that yet, so maybe the stream that we do next would be a look at the finer details of that. But thanks for being here, everybody. I'm going to go. Awesome to have you on here, and we'll be meeting back soon.